We're ready. So, guys, I'm thrilled and honored to introduce you the one and only Rikki Stein. Please give him a warm welcome.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming.
So, I have to thank you, Rikki, for accepting with enthusiasm my invitation to come here in Milano, sharing with us your incredible life. So, thank you again.
I'm glad I came.
So, I was in Lisbon when I was reading your book, traveling, and a line captured me in a particular way. And from that sentence to the last line I was completing within your story, the sentence is this one that I'm going to read now. Talking about celebration, you are saying in the introduction, this is the quality of music I've always been attracted to. Life-enhancing, socially relevant, transcendental. The kind of stimulating music that gladdens the heart. It is a passion that has led me through a life full of challenging, uplifting adventures. These are my stories. The book is talking about his life, and it's called Moving Music, and you can find it online on Amazon, published by Warwheel. And as I said, from here to the last line, I was completely captured by your stories, which are amazing. And so I really think that it's super important to have like memories of things and remember the stories. And so, of course, your story is an individual story, but do you recognize which is part of music history?
Well, when you're doing stuff, you don't think about it in historic terms. I was just living my life. But I've been very fortunate to have connected with some extraordinary musicians that I've been able to carry around the world. We've been 10 times around the planet. And so I feel like, I've been doing this for 60 years or so. And here we are, all in one piece. I got all my fingers, all my toes.
Which is a success, I guess. Yeah.
Yes.
And how did you start? So did you always want to do that kind of job, working with artists, working in the music industry, or it just came, as you said?
It just was a slow kind of development. When I was 16, I had a jazz club once a week in London. I used to bring English jazz musicians to come and play. Johnny Dankworth, Roy East, Brian Brocklehurst. I don't know if you know any of these names because it's a long time ago. And that was the kind of way, slowly, I got myself involved in carrying music around, which seemed to be as reasonable an occupation as any other that I might have chosen or that might have chosen me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a classic, but it's important to do that. Talking about Fela, how was it to be like a friend? Because you told me, as we told like yesterday even, it's super important to have like friends, to work with friends, which is not the common kind of thing. But how was it to work with a friend like Fela and like an artist and managing also him, which is like a radical kind of artist that we all love for that? How was it?
Well, you've jumped. I met Fela. How old was I when I met Fela? I must have been in my late 40s. So there was a whole bunch of stuff that came before. But, I heard Fela's music and I just was like, wow, what is this? And I wanted to meet him, and I had the opportunity to do so. And we just became friends, just immediately. It was just an extraordinary... I can't explain why that happened, but it happened.
Of course.
And it was a friendship that was to endure for the rest of our life. When I met him, I had no thought of managing him. And it was later, I met him in the late 70s. And I think it was in 82 that he asked me to come on board. He already had a manager called Francis Kutekian, who unfortunately passed in 2016. But we spent 35 years together.
Also, Francis was a friend of you, right?
Yeah, well, no. When somebody like me turns up for a manager, it's like, who is this guy?
Of course, yeah, it's a classic.
But we became friends. And then Fela invited me.
This is Francis.
Yeah.
Rachid.
Aha.
picture before that.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's with Jimmy.
Yeah, with Jimi Hendrix.
Hmm.
That's a huge one. That's my favorite.
That was when Fela came out of jail.
Jail.
Yeah, which was a huge celebration. You can imagine.
Yeah.
Not just for me, but for Nigeria. Everybody was.
And how was it?
What?
How was it that day, that moment?
Wow, it was party time, man. The whole the whole city came out for him. But anyway, yeah. So in 1982, Fela invited me to come and join him. So I became co-manager of Fela with Francis, which, as I said, endured for 35 years, and we traveled the world together and did everything that needed to be done.
Of course.
Yeah.
And as a producer, I'm always like curious to know the writing and recording process of artists. And of course, I always listen to Fela music, and I'm trying to understand the attitude and the method that he had. So tell me about the recording and writing process of Fela and the inspiration of Fela.
Well, as far as writing was concerned, Fela, if asked where his inspiration came from, he'd say, from fucking, right?
Touche.
You say that's where he got his inspiration.
Can't blame him.
I can't argue with that, man.
No, I can't agree with you.
And also, we have to remember that he did have 27 wives.
Of course.
Yeah, that he had to keep happy.
Yeah, huge work to do.
In the studio, it was amazing, man. But I remember one time he was doing an overdub solo, sax solo. So he was playing, and when he finished, I pushed the button and said, "Fella, that was cool, but there was some serious qua inside there." And he said, "Oh, Rikki, life has got qua inside it, man."
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah, it's true, but please, I beg, play again now."
Does he play it again?
Yes.
He played again.
Yes. So that was my job.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
And you travel a lot, and you did you took a lot of flights, many amount of flights.
Yeah, sometimes with 70 people on the roads.
Not an easy thing.
It was a
at all.
challenge.
It was a challenge.
70 Nigerians on the road was a challenge.
It was.
But we made it, and I never missed a plane, which I feel
Which is a great achievement. Yeah, a huge one.
good about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reading your book, I was captured by the way you shaped your way of thinking and working in relationship with the place that you've been. So how is it important to step out of your comfort zone and go to the unknown? Talking even about musical and not musical, even geographically speaking.
Well, I suppose it would be fair to say that I've been stepping out of my comfort zone for my entire life. I like a challenge, man.
Of course.
I managed the Pan-African Orchestra, 35 people, the Ensemble Symphonique Traditionnel, 35 people, the Master Musicians of Jujuka, Le Ballet Africain National Dance Company of Guinea was 42 people on the road. So I suppose you could call that a challenge.
Of course.
But then when you get it all up on stage and this extraordinary thing is happening, it makes it all worthwhile, Yeah. So that's the pay. You could say, I'm happy to be able to earn a living doing what I do, but the real pay, man, is when you see an audience just ecstatically enjoying themselves and leaving the venue with a smile stuck on their face they can't quite get off.
That's unpayable.
That's the pay.
Yeah. Completely agree with that. And another thing that I understand reading your life is that you always choose to work with artists that had a meaning in your music, and they didn't not see the success as the goal, but just as a tool to arrive to the people. So
yeah, that's also true.
Yeah, these days not that common.
Yeah, I mean, doing yummy chewy chewy music is not for me. People would say, Rikki, you're good at what you do. Why don't you manage Spice Girls? I said, look, if you want to do it, go do it, man. But there's, I need,
Your thing.
Fela used to, I always said that he created this extraordinary musical chariot in which his message could travel. And it was the message at the end of the day, you could say, that was the more important. You know, his message was one of social justice, of identifying and challenging corruption. You know, these are the things that he was talking about. And he paid a very steep price, man. Of course, they beat the shit out of him, man. He had scars all over his body. But it never stopped the guy. He said, well, they didn't kill me. And he'd still be there the next day, still shouting his, challenge to the authorities. I mean, he was faced off against a military junta, single-handed. That takes a lot of energy and courage.
Yeah, it takes a lot. And do you think these days is an important thing to carry on this kind of message from the artists?
I do. I mean, I listen to the current music coming out of Nigeria. I quite like some of the music, you know. I mean, they had this annoying habit of putting an S on the end of Afrobeats, which is kind of stupid, really.
Yeah, I think it too.
But as I said, I quite like some of the music, but what are they talking about, man? They're talking about Legova. Does everybody know what Legova?
No, please explain us.
Oh, come on, man. You don't know Legova? No. Yeah, it's when you're with a lady.
Oh, of course, yeah. Now we understand it.
Yeah, I remember a Manchester club promoter when I was in my 20s saying, don't forget, lad, what it's all about. It's all about Legova.
Yeah, so, because you toured a lot in the not only in the UK but also in the northern part of France and Belgium, right? In your part of like in your 20s, maybe.
Yeah. Well, in the 60s, I lived in Belgium, in a little town called Moucron on the French border. I was in partnership with a Belgian guy, and we used to bring English rock and roll bands over to tour in Europe. The Kinks, my first tour was with the Kinks, the Yardbirds, the Animals, the Moody Blues. I did Jimi Hendrix' first European tour. So that was during the mid-60s, 65, 66, 67.
And how was that experience?
Oh, it was great. Yeah, it was great. I mean, we didn't make any money, but we had a great time. Yeah.
Which is an important part of our job, you know.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was a good experience to have had and to know all those people, yeah.
Of course. But talking about Kalakuta Republic, for example, how is it important today in a so digitalized and disconnected world to, create physical places where people can go there and feel the real message of the artist? How's important now?
Yeah, it's very important. But just going back on what I was saying about Afrobeats, what are they talking about, man? They're not telling you anything. You know, there's nothing to inspire you, nothing to make you feel, that kind of feeling
sparkling,
you get when you listen to Fela. Policeman go slap your face, you know who talk. Army man go whip your nyash because you look like donkey.
Yeah, you're completely smashed by this. Yeah.
Yeah. So working with people that have got something to say, musically and lyrically, is very important to me. I mean, those are the people that I've been attracted to in my life.
Of course.
That I've felt some kinship with, That also brings up the subject of friendship.
Yeah,
I think it's very important to work with people that you love, man,
I completely agree with that, 100%.
Yeah. People say you shouldn't work with artists that, with friends. And I think that's nonsense, man. I only want to work with friends. Because, you can say more or less anything to your friend, more or less, right? But when it's not a friend, when it's just a pragmatic kind of business relationship, no. I've tried, a couple of times I've tried. People have said, give this a go. It's never worked out for me.
And I completely understand it. I always work with friends, and of course it's tough sometimes, but at the same time it's easier because you can talk like directly and
Nobody told us it was going to be easy.
Of course.
So we can't complain too much.
Talking about the Jujurka trip that you have in your 20s, I guess, or your 30s.
I was early 30s.
How was it? How was it like spiritually and musically speaking?
Well, I found my way to Morocco, and some friends said, "Oh, we're going to go visit a friend. Would you like to come?" I said, "Okay." And we went into the Medina, and we arrived at a building, and we climbed up to the roof. And on the roof, there was a guy with his back to us in the jalaba, painting, like an oil painting. The guy spun around and looked at me, and he had eyes like burning coals. He said, "Oh, where do you be? I wait you a long time." I said, "Well, I got here as fast as I could." And he then ran downstairs, and he ran back up with a record cover which said that Brian Jones, the Rolling Stones, plays with the pipes of Pan of Jejuka. And I turned the album over, and on the other side there was a sleeve notes written by a guy called Brian Geisen, and it was describing a village and the great god Pan. You know Pan, with cloven feet and a mischievous deity. And when I lived in Oregon, in America, I used to put out something called the Atlantis Almanac, and I used to take a myth of some sort and write about it. So I'd written about the great god Pan, and I described a village where I thought that he would have lived and how it was. There would be running water, there'd be pretty girls, there'd be music playing, you know. And there I was standing on this roof reading this thing as if I'd written it, you know. And I said, "You mean this place is real?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "We can go there?" "Yes." And the next day, I found myself in this little van with this guy driving like a bat out of hell. He was a very lively character, man. And he'd say, "The people, they sleeping. My job is waking them. Beep, beep." And we found our way up this mountain, and we arrived on the top of in a cloud of little boys running alongside the van, and we arrived at a building, and all these people tumbled out, short ones and tall ones and old ones and young ones and fat ones and thin ones, and they just ushered me in, and they all had gleaming white turbans and these kind of woolly jalabas, and sat me down and gave me mint tea to drink and a keef pipe to smoke. And then somebody picked up a flute and started to play, and somebody else picked up another flute, and then somebody picked up a hand drum, and this thing started to happen, man. I got to my feet, and I danced like I never danced in my life before. And I flopped down next to this huge guy. Now, I'd only been in Morocco for 5 minutes, so I didn't speak Arabic, of course, at the time. And he spoke to me and he said, "Rikki, welcome home." But this is in Arabic, man. But I understood what he was saying. You can come and go as you wish, but this will always be home for you. And I stayed, ostensibly learning to play the drum. But I left school when I was 15, and consider my time in that village. I was there for about 2 years. As my formal education, yeah.
And so why it's important to step out and, leave the known to the unknown and going outside and...
Yeah.
Because...
So that was in 71 and 72. And then I came back to London. I went back to the village in 1979. I bought a bus. I got passports for everybody, and I toured them around Europe for 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And I'm still in touch with them. In fact, we went there last year with my daughter. We went to revisit the village.
Amazing.
I brought them to the Glastonbury Festival, where they opened the festival on the main stage.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huge thing.
And I took them to Rome, to the what's it called now? Villa Bonaparte.
Sì.
Bonaparte bought. Thank you. Bonaparte bought it. Yeah, I think he treated it like the Club Mediterranean at the time. But anyway, I took them there. I took them to the Beaubourg in Paris. I took them to Japan.
Yeah, because you need a lot of this kind of operation, because you went to places like, especially in Africa, and you find something like typical from that place, and you had the like intuition to bring that outside of their boundaries, and through, I'm talking about every word, every
Yes.
part of the word, and to read all around, but even
Right.
with like kind of courage, kind of project, Les Ballets, for example, the Pan-African Orchestra,
Yes.
etc.
Right.
How was to deal with exporting this kind of this project, even like Morocco?
It was all, I mean, from a point of view of getting visas and all those
Exactly.
things there, it's a bit complicated, but you had to just do it, man. There was no other answer. You had to get stuck into it and make sure you got everybody sorted out and got their tickets and got their visas and sorted out all the tax stuff. And
Of course. And how was the reaction from the artists that see themselves like bring in other countries, bring their music all around?
Musicians all over the world are the same, man. They're all a bunch of rascals.
True.
And they just care about being able to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
It's your job. They don't want to get involved in, which is fine. I don't think, I think the job of an artist is to allow a manager, allow their artist to operate, to work on their music. They shouldn't have to worry about everything else.
Of course. And what do you suggest to today's artists for like bringing their music outside of their boundaries? What's your advice?
Well, I think it's important for an artist to be able to spread their wings and, show other people in other parts of the world what it is that they have that is unique. I came to Italy. I've been here many times with many artists. But yesterday I had a fantastic dinner, man.
I'm glad.
I was asked what was my favorite food. I said, escalope Milanese. And here I am in Milan, so I have to eat that. What was served to me, what was put on my plate yesterday, I was like, wow, this is a proper food. So introducing artists to other cultures is very important in both directions, for the artist and for the audience that are going to appreciate something they haven't seen before or heard before, Of
course. And talking about having memories of things, you are reprinting and remastering like Fela's old songs. And how was it important to you today to, trying to bring the old songs and the masters to today's like platforms like Spotify, for example, or like digital streaming platform?
Yeah, when we signed Fela to the label that they're presently with, I spent 10 years, because a lot of the stuff was recorded under fairly primitive conditions in Nigeria. It took us 10 years.
Long time.
Yeah, well, it's 50 albums, man. So it took us 10 years. You could do like 10 minutes a day, getting rid of all the clicks and clacks,
Of course.
without affecting the music itself, But I'm very satisfied with the job that we did. And at the end of the day, it sounds like it was recorded yesterday.
Yeah, I can confirm that.
We're about to go into the studio again, actually, and remix the entire Fela catalog in Dolby Atmos, which seems like a sensible thing to do.
Yeah. It is. It is. Starting from returning to the beginning, you started to write your book during the COVID, and how that happened, and why you start to write it.
I've made a stab at it earlier, but I'm busy, man. I'm working every day, and it's very difficult to do your daily work and also sit down and remember things that happened 60 years ago. Then COVID came along. Now COVID, a fellow always used to say, even bad can be good. And here's a perfect example of that, where a lot of people were suffering because of COVID. For me, COVID was perfect, because
Of course,
there
it was an opportunity to
I was
write.
stuck in my house, man, and I did it as a job. I get up in the morning and I write till the evening, and it took me 2 years to remember everything.
It was a tough job. Tough job, of course.
Yeah,
It's not easy, but
get it into those pages.
yeah, it's full of details also. So, it was not easy. I can imagine it was not easy to remember everything, but it's a real and intense message to all people that want to, work in a certain way in the music industry. So I think you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Okay, so talking about Glastonbury, you were one of the founder of the Glastonbury, right?
Yeah, yes.
And how was that experience? Well, how did you start?
Well, for thousands of years, people have found it necessary to gather together in large numbers and celebrate life.
Of course,
So I brought Jujuka on. When I brought Jujuka on tour, we actually opened it at Worthy Farm, which is where the Glastonbury Festival was held, but it was before the festival. And Michael, the farmer, had a festival in 1971. And funnily enough, that same weekend, I brought the Grateful Dead to do a show in Paris. But anyway, so there we were on the farm, and Jujuka was set up in front of the wagon shed there, and they played. It was a wonderful show. And then I went for a walk with Michael, and he told me that he wanted to do the festival again, and would I like to be involved? Anyway, so we started there, and it was a fantastic experience, man. Wonderful. I did every job there that you can imagine, and I finished up running security, which was a pretty tough job, man. That was a pretty tough
in England, so much.
Yeah.
Everywhere, but in England, it's not so easy.
Right. But I put together a team of power pushers, those guys built like brick shit houses. And it all worked out. I mean, Glastonbury now is 150,000 people come there. I was there this year, and I went with Fela Kuti. Yeah, he was there playing on the main stage.
It changed a lot during the years, or you can feel like the same energy.
It's huge now. I could say a bit too big, maybe. Apart from, walking now is like, what? You have to go, because it's huge, like 10 stages or 12 stages, something like that. But my kids love it. They go every year. Yeah. No, it's turned into a wonderful thing. But when we started it, we were doing it as a fundraiser for the campaign for nuclear disarmament. And now it still gives a lot of money to charity. Yeah. It's good to have an opportunity to do that kind of thing.
Of course, yeah. And you also managed Rachid Taha, which is one of my favorite artists, like Algerian one. Right. So
Rachid Taha, the Algerian rocker.
Yeah,
who lived in Paris.
A legend. Yeah,
but he was wonderful. I mean, a man with real integrity. Again, like Fela, wonderful guy. Unfortunately, we lost him too early. Yeah.
And tell me about his understanding of life, his view, and working even with a man like Rachid.
Rachid was wonderful. I carried him all over the planet, and I get these phone calls like 2:00 in the morning. My phone would ring. Rachid, Rikki, I love you. And then he put the phone down. And I later learned that I was one amongst many that would get that kind of phone call from Rachid. You know, my favorite thing to do when I was going to Paris, I'd time it so that I would arrive in the evening and I would meet Rachid, and Paris by night with Rachid Taha. Wow. You'd meet philosophers, you'd meet celebrities, you'd meet gangsters, you'd meet street urchins, and they all loved him unconditionally.
We're talking about the late 80s or early 90s or
Yeah,
before?
80s, 90s.
80s, yeah.
You know, for 30 or 40 years, I was going
course.
backwards and forwards to Paris to spend time with Rachid Taha. Yeah.
Number one. I love him. So, Rikki, I guess we are close to the end. Yeah, people, do you want to ask something more about it? Feel free to ask something.
Well, people like Sheon, you mean? Yeah, I mean, he's part and parcel culturally of what he comes from, which is Nigerian society, Nigerian culture. And he's deeply buried inside it, as is Femi Kuti, and now Femi's son, Made Kuti. So he's moved another generation. Made went to Trinity College, which is where Fela went for 4 years. And in fact, we've established a Fela and Nicolapo Kuti scholarship at Trinity College, which is... yeah, we've just had our second recipient has taken a bass player. Yeah, the first was a trumpeter. Yeah, I mean, if you're Nigerian, you're part of Nigerian culture, man. You can't escape it. And I think that all of the Kutis represent that kind of the Yoruba mentality, Yoruba feeling, you know, which is part and parcel of their music. You know, sometimes people will come to the shrine, which is a beautiful venue, the New Africa Shrine. Yeah. Have you been there? Oh, I love that place. And the sound is not very good in Western terms, but it's what they like it that way, man, because that's what they've been used to, you know. But it's the same as, you know, the Jamaican dub.
Yeah, exactly.
Which was always kind of, what is this? But it's, the same problem that their expectations were larger than the equipment that was available with which to transmit those expectations. Yeah.
But somehow they set a standard, because now, and also in the 90s, but maybe earlier, people wanted to recreate the sound. I'm talking about dub, for example, and also with kind of roots kind of music, talking about African one from the 70s, for example. There are plugins or like software or even outboard today that wants to recreate that sound. And of course, I'm a real fan of it. But yeah, it's incredible how they decided.
Anybody else want to ask anything? Yes, no. Yeah, it's very, I mean, if you've got something to say, you've got to find a way to say it, you know, and stick to your guns. We were talking, we're not going to name any names, but we're talking about an artist that everybody liked. We all said, oh yeah, well, and then we heard work that they'd come up with after. It was like, oh, so maybe, you know, the A&R guy or the record company had said, make it a little bit more, you know, a little bit more. And it's moved away from that rootsy thing that we all loved at the beginning, and now has been distorted into something with... So, yeah, I would say if you got something in your belly, you know, I receive a lot of music, and sometimes it's, you know, not all, anyway. But I always reply, and I say, I hope you won't be offended if I offer some advice, but don't worry so much about what you think people want to hear, but tell us what you have in your belly. And people normally responded to that quite well, you know.
So, again, thank you for wrote this book, Rikki, because it's incredible.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it, man.
Yeah.
I was so happy to hear somebody in Italy who said, oh, Rikki, we like your book. I'm just about to release the ebook version.
Yeah.
And I'm about to go into the studio and record the audio version. So I'm really looking forward to that, because I'm going to include music. When I talk about somebody, I'll be able to say, yeah, check this, and play a bit of their music.
And we're looking forward to.
Me too. That'll be out in probably of February, March, next year.
So thank you again for your time, for being here, for your incredible memories. And
Giroletti, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you all, guys. Grazie. Cheers.